Hey, Rajkumar here. Welcome to the Living the Dream Show with Kevin White. This is the podcast where we partner in God's dream of every nation, tribe, and tongue worshipping Jesus in heaven, and it being on earth today as it already is in heaven. On Friday, June 4, Kevin will be sharing a powerful message from God's Word entitled God's Way of Others First. I hope you'll join us for this international live broadcast from the USA via Zoom, YouTube or Facebook at 10 a.m. Eastern Time on Friday, June 4. Details at kevinwhite.us. We'll see you there. Okay, now here's Kevin with today's show.
Hello, this is Kevin. Thank you so much, Rajkumar, for that warm welcome. And I welcome you, sir. Glad to have you on the show, Rajkumar. And I welcome each and every one of you. I want to say hello to everyone on YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, it's good to actually be able to show you video, as I'm going to be sharing a very special interview with former President George W. Bush today. So I hope that you'll actually be able to go over to YouTube and see the video of that. But I want to welcome everyone in the audience from the USA, India, Iran, Spain, South Africa, Germany, Russia, Philippines, Finland, and it just goes on and on and on. What a privilege and honor it is to have this message of living the dream going out to over 115 different countries. And I welcome you to the show today. As you know, we champion the vision, the dream that we see in Revelation 7 verses 9 through 12, where we have the vision of every nation, tribe, and tongue worshiping Jesus in heaven. And that is what heaven is. It's what heaven's going to be like. People of all color, all nationalities worshiping Jesus together. And so it's been our prayer on this show that it would be on earth as it is in heaven. As you know, we have a long way to go. There's still incredible turmoil around the world as racism and discrimination and hate are in the news on a regular basis. But today we have former President George W. Bush, and we want to feature him and his book. Long before he was President of the United States, he was a proponent of immigrations. And he has written a book based upon his paintings, which portray portraits of immigrants that have been very meaningful in his life. After he completed his presidency with the United States, he picked up a paintbrush for the very first time in his life. He was actually influenced by Winston Churchill, picked up the paintbrush and began drawing these portraits of these immigrants that had been very impactful in his own life. So I want to share with you the description, a video describing the book, followed by an interview with former President George W. Bush as he talks about that. And I want to just capture today this call for border control with compassion. This is not just a United States issue. This is an issue of every country around the world. We think we own the land and that we are natives of this land, but yet immigration is an incredible act of God that advances the gospel. And so I want you to go over to YouTube, watch this, or just listen to the audio as I share with you two videos, one sharing the description of his book, followed by an interview where he is talking about the book. And listen for this phrase about border control with compassion.
I think every journey is unique and different and separate. I come from the eastern part of Turkey as a Kurd, as a nomad.
I was actually a homeless kid after the genocide because many orphanages in Rwanda at that time were not taking children because they were full.
We had a civil war in Lebanon. So as a kid, imagine sleeping at 3 in the morning and then the whole building would shake, glass broken, lights, sirens.
These faces are 3 of the 43 immigrants featured in President Bush's new book. Some faces you may recognize, a part of our history books, like former Secretaries of State Henry Kissinger and Madeleine Albright. But most you will not. The people the former president says make up the very spirit of America.
Welcome.
And today, their journey brings them here to George W. Bush Presidential Center in Dallas to not only meet with the former president, but to see the portraits he has painted in their honor for the very first time.
Come over here, Salim. This is the thing that will be seen by a lot of people.
Wow.
Salim Asrawi became one of the 1 million people who fled Lebanon's civil war when he was just 13. Salim would go on to found the world's largest Brazilian steakhouse chain, Texas de Brazil, with just the money in his pocket.
Okay.
Ta-da! At just 9 years old, Jean Celestine Lakin watched her family slaughtered in front of her eyes during the Rwandan genocide. She now provides education to orphans like herself around the world.
It's the moment.
Yeah.
Wow.
Hamdi Ulukaya grew up as a Kurdish nomad in eastern Turkey before traveling to America with only the knowledge of how to make cheese and yogurt. He's now the founder of Chobani, the top-selling Greek yogurt brand in the United States.
One of the things Americans have got to understand, people who've been successful in our country, the newly arrived, give back a lot. Now, you, Jean, had a childhood in Rwanda. I guess the natural tendency would be to have hate in your heart for people who destroyed your family. How were you able to convert hate to love?
My mother, my sweet mom, used to say that when you have a heavy heart or when you have bitterness in your heart, God cannot listen to your prayers.
So here's what I hope Americans take away from the discussions in your stories. We're all God's children, and every life is precious. And if you start with that, with love in your heart as opposed to anger in your heart or suspicion in your heart, then all of a sudden these problems are more easy to solve. And that by welcoming people, obviously within the law, but welcoming people really makes us a better nation. And here's 3 citizens that have made us a better nation.
Hey, it's Rajkumar. Kevin will be right back. I invite you to visit kevinwhite.us and join thousands of subscribers to Kevin's daily 1-minute motivation series called Generously Blessed. Kevin's book, Audacious Generosity, is an international bestseller. Audacious Generosity is available in paperback, handbook, ebook, and audiobook at kevinwhite.us. And worldwide everywhere books are sold. A serial entrepreneur, Kevin has helped start hundreds of businesses, non-profits and churches. Kevin loves to help people prosper from God's guidance and provisions. As founder or executive director of Global Hope India, Kevin has traveled over 1 million miles to 27 different countries, speaking to thousands of audiences throughout India and the world. Schedule Kevin today at kevinwhite.us. Make sure to visit globalhopeindia.org and join thousands of people who pray, give and go. Global Hope India has over 20 years of missions experience in India. Now everyone can go to India virtually on one of GHI's virtual mission teams. Over 1 billion people in India have never held a Bible. Most people in India lack access to even know about Jesus. Join Global Hope India in changing that. Go to globalhopeindia.org today to pray, give, go. Okay, now back to the show.
It's so great to see you.
It's about time we've met.
I cannot believe it. I know. I feel like every time you've come to the studio, I haven't been here. It's my pleasure. We have a lot to talk about. I want to talk about the book and these wonderful people. But I think we should begin with what is in the news today. There are American cities boarding up. There are schools that are closing. Everyone's awaiting the Derek Chauvin verdict. And I was reading back to what you said after George Floyd died, and it struck me. You said, Laura and I are anguished over the brutal suffocation of George Floyd, disturbed by injustice and fear that will suffocate our country. And then I was just thinking about this moment, this verdict. I mean, what do you think will be the impact on the racial reckoning in this country?
I think the first thing is, Hoda, is that people know that the trial has been conducted fairly, and that rule of law reigns supreme in our judiciary. We'll see what a jury of his peers says. I think a lot of people have already made up their mind what the verdict ought to be. All I can tell you is that if the trial is not conducted fairly, there is an appeal process. One of the things that we learned after the storming of the Capitol was our institutions held. And one of the institutions that's really important for the confidence of the American people is a fair judicial system. And I think that's what's playing out on our TVs right now.
I do want to talk about the Capitol. We'll talk about that in just a second. But let's talk immigration for a second. And I'm looking at these beautiful portraits of these immigrants. And then I'm thinking about other images that are so disturbing to me. That, remember the little 10-year-old boy who was wandering, crying through the, you can picture him. Or the 2- and 3-year-olds who were dropped right over the fence. I mean, I was just thinking about those images, and I just keep thinking, like, why can't we get this right?
Well, it's hard for Americans to understand. And I can't really understand why a mother becomes so desperate, or how a mother becomes so desperate that she's willing to put her children in the hands of a coyote, a smuggler. And so there's been a lot of devastation in Central America, political upheaval, earthquakes, gangs and drug lords, and the people are totally intimidated. And so they're streaming to our border. The system really needs to be reformed and fixed. Two things I think will help alleviate that. One is an asylum process that is more robust. In other words, the border is being overwhelmed right now, and there needs to be more judges and more courts so people can have a fair hearing. And secondly, we need to change the work visas. There's a lot of jobs that are empty, and there's a lot of jobs that need to be filled, and yet there are people willing to work hard to do so. And so I think a combination of those two would help alleviate some of the border. I talked to a Border Patrol head down there in the southern sector, and one of the problems we have right now is that many of the law enforcement, the Border Patrol agents, are pulled off duty to deal with children and, to guard hospitals. And it just goes to show there's a real shortage of manpower and focus down there.
Well, you're so passionate about this. I mean, you're
passionate.
You're lobbying, obviously, by this book. You're lobbying for it. But I thought you said something interesting in an interview a couple of days ago, and I'm paraphrasing, but you said, as you talk about immigration reform, you're not so sure that your Republican colleagues are listening. Why not?
Well, some of them aren't, because the politics. Some of the Democrat colleagues weren't listening when I was president, because you can score political points with the issue. And so part of the purpose of the book is to elevate the discourse and remind our fellow citizens about the beauty of America, that it attracts people who are escaping tyranny or fleeing oppression or just want an opportunity to provide a better life. And today we're swearing in a group of citizens who were on the front line of the pandemic, many of them, and they weren't even citizens of the United States. It's a beautiful country we have, and yet it's not beautiful when we call people names and scare people about immigration. It's an easy issue to frighten some of the electorate, and I'm trying to have a different kind of voice.
Well, okay, if you were to describe the Republican Party as you see it today, how would you describe it?
I would describe it as isolationist, protectionist, and to a certain extent, nativist.
Are you disappointed?
Well, it's not exactly my vision, but you know what? I'm just an old guy they put out to pasture, so just a simple painter.
The simple painter. Okay, let me give you a hypothetical candidate for 2024. Okay, this hypothetical Republican is pro-immigration, pro a path to citizenship for undocumented workers. Pro-DACA, pro-reasonable gun control, pro-education funding for public schools. Does that person have a shot, or would that Republican have a shot in 2024?
Sure,
You think?
I think so. I think that it depends upon the emphasis. I think if the emphasis is integrity and decency and trying to work to get the problem solved, I think the person has a shot, yeah.
It seems like you've...
By the way, I think pro-immigration isn't the right way to put it. I think border enforcement with a compassionate touch
Oh, okay.
is how I would put it.
All right, that's a
Because
good...
pro-immigration basically means let's just open up the borders, and nobody's really for that. And you can't have a country that has open borders.
Right. Now, I feel like you've made it a point not to criticize your predecessors.
That's true.
Have you ever been tempted?
I guess step one is, have I ever been tempted to defend myself publicly? And the answer is no.
No.
Not really. I mean, look, I'm out. And no, I haven't. Yeah, I guess I have been, sure. I mean,
anything you can
anyone
share?
in particular?
Yeah.
No, I think I'm fine. If I did, Michelle Obama might not be my friend.
That friendship, by the way, has just captivated people.
Yeah.
Isn't that so funny that something so simple seems so weird to people?
Yeah, it really points out how bitter we've become.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget after McCain's funeral when I gave her the candy, I think it was Jenna, said, "Hey, Dad, you're trending." And I said, not sure what that means.
You're like, what did I do?
Yeah, exactly. And it was Michelle Obama and I being friendly to each other.
Well, you talk about people being friendly, but, you know, we know that politics can get ugly.
Sure.
But I don't know when it's been uglier than January 6th. And I didn't get a chance to ask you, but when you were watching that unfold as the president and the son of one, what was going on in your mind?
It kind of made me sick. And that kind of made me sick. It did make me sick. I felt ill. And I just couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
You know, but the truth of the matter is I was optimistic that we would survive that because I believe so strongly in the institutional stability of our country. And it did survive. The Congress met, ratified the election. The courts met and are still meeting today to hold people to account for storming the Capitol. You know, what's really troubling is how much misinformation there is and the capacity of people to spread all kinds of untruth.
Yeah.
And I don't know what we're going to do about that. I know what I'm doing about it. I don't do Twitter, Facebook, or any of that stuff.
You're off of it all now.
Yeah.
You've never done it.
No.
President Biden came to you, I guess, a few days ago and explained to you that he was going to pull troops out of Afghanistan. Did you think that was the right decision?
Well, when he told me that, I've thought about Roya, who's right over your left shoulder there. And Roya's been, helping Afghan women and Afghan girls, as has Laura, as have people at the Bush Center. And my first reaction was, wow, these girls are going to have real trouble with the Taliban. And a lot of gains have been made, and so I'm deeply concerned about the plight of women and girls in that country.
You think we should have held off on that decision?
Well, I think we'll see. I mean, time will tell. I think the administration hopes that the girls are going to be okay through diplomacy. We'll find out. All I know is the Taliban, when they had the run of the place, they were brutal.
Yeah.
Brutal.
Yeah. Can you believe it's been 20 years since we went in there?
We went into Korea in 52.
Yeah.
We went into Germany in 42 or 44.
Yeah.
20 years. I guess you were going to say, can you believe you've been out of office? You were in there first 20 years ago. Yeah, time flies.
I want to talk about your paintings. I feel like you paint two groups mainly. You paint a lot of people, but you paint veterans.
I paint a lot of veterans.
And you paint immigrants.
Yeah.
Why those two groups?
Well, first of all, I have a kinship with veterans.
Yeah.
And I got great empathy and with immigrants. We were all raised, mainly Jeb, Neil, Marvin, Dara, since I was a little older, by a woman who came up from Mexico with nothing.
Yeah.
Paula.
Yeah, I loved reading her story.
Oh, she's awesome.
Oh.
She was awesome. And she was nearly as tough on us as Mother.
She was.
Pretty damn tough.
Wow.
Yeah, she was great.
Wow.
But she taught us about family values because she cared deeply about her family. As a matter of fact, 2 days ago, two of her daughters came up from Houston to see the portrait. And this woman owned homes. She's a voter. She cared deeply and had two families, one of which was ours. And
wow.
It opened up my heart to
It is a beautiful, beautiful book. I've so enjoyed that conversation. Thank you.
And so you've been watching 2 video clips that I wanted to share with you that just really set a heartbeat. Now, obviously, we're not a political show. We're not endorsing one political party over the other, but this is an unprecedented act for a former president of the United States to have such a heart of God in really calling for all people to matter, and how we respond with compassion to people that have different skin color than us, nationalities than we do. It's something that Jesus set forth in the gospel. It is my understanding that former President George W. Bush is a believer. He is a follower of Christ. But regardless, he is demonstrating a compassion, a love for all people that we need, that this show champions. Next week, we're going to continue with more from former President George W. Bush, and I can't wait to see you then. God bless you. Have a great week. Keep living the dream.
Thank you for listening to the Living the Dream show with Kevin White. Find the complete archive of all episodes at kevinwhite.us or subscribe for free through your favorite podcast player and never miss an episode. This program copyright Kevin White International Incorporated. All rights reserved. Each week, we bring you a message of how this story ends from Revelation 7:9-12 with every nation, tribe and tongue worshipping Jesus in heaven. Remembering to let it be on earth as it already is in heaven, as the gift of God's presence through Jesus Christ is accessible to everyone.